can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition and another week of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network as the Stanley Cup playoffs roll into the second round, which already began yesterday. We'll get to that in a bit, but he is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, how are you on this fine Monday?
I'm fantastic, Jimmy. Good to see you. Congratulations to the Vancouver Canucks. They move on from their series in 6 games. Congratulations to the Boston Bruins. I know you were in the building on Saturday night. They move on in 7 games. Great overtime play by the Boston Bruins, not just one player, but a bunch of players. And then finally, Dallas Stars, Jimmy, that goaltender, Jake Ottinger.
Yes.
He performed at the level most people thought. He was not great in game 1 of the series. He was better in game 2, but after game 2, that guy was really good.
He progressively got better as the series went on, and he is in fine shape right now as the Dallas Stars move into the second round to face the Colorado Avalanche, which won't be an easy task. Another huge, tough series for the Stars. Pierre, we can beat a dead horse about changing the playoff format, but man, I bet that dead horse is being beat a lot in Dallas right now because look at the 2 teams they draw in the first 2 rounds. The defending Stanley Cup champions from 2023 and the Stanley Cup champions now from 2022. Just sort of a murderer's row that they're going through, but I think they do move on again. I like their chances in this series. I think it's going to be a war. I think it goes 6 or 7, but I do like Dallas's chances, Pierre.
You know me, I don't pick winners and losers publicly just because of friendships that have been created over 35 years around pro hockey. That being said, I can tell you why I think a certain team will win and why I think a certain team might not win. I think the biggest thing in that series is going to be the depth players of Dallas. And somehow, some way, a player like Radek Faksa, who obviously scored a huge goal last night, will he be able to stabilize the game against some of the better forwards of the Colorado Avalanche? That, I think, going to be a huge part of the series. Huge part of it.
And I would say, too, now, look, when we headed into the Winnipeg series with Colorado, we, on paper, as most people did, gave the clear goalie edge to the Winnipeg Jets, on paper, that is, as we were proven again. That's why they play the game. They don't play it on paper. They play it on ice. And, you could say that about other sports. They play it on the grass, or the court. And we were proven wrong with that. But if you were to give, just looking at what's going on, the way it's gone so far, if you were to look at the goalies right now, I would give the edge to the Dallas Stars just based on the form that Ottinger is in. Now, that's to take nothing away from the recovery that Georgiev made in that series after game 1. I mean, he proved a lot of people wrong. He deserves a lot of credit for the mental fortitude he showed in that series. But I'm just talking on paper right now. I give the edge to the Dallas Stars.
You're talking about in goal or the overall series? In goal.
In goal.
No, I think you have to. Jake's been great. We talked about it going into the playoffs. I mean, I thought Jake Ottinger was going to be the reason why, if Dallas won and beat Vegas, it was going to be because Jake went to another level, and he did. And look at that. That worked out well. And, as well as Logan Thompson played, as well as Aiden Hill played, they had to go with 2 goalies in Vegas, whereas Pete DeBoer in Dallas, by the way, Pete DeBoer 8-0 in game 7s.
Unreal, eh?
An amazing accomplishment. That's the number 1 in the history of the NHL. That's an amazing accomplishment by a real good coach who had to change over time, by the way, Jimmy. He's a different coach than what he was when he started in Florida. Way different coach than what he was when he was in New Jersey. Way different coach from what he was in San Jose. And I love the fact that, you see a guy like Joe Pavelski that played for him in San Jose, and you see the relationship that they have. It's really cool to see. Pete's done an amazing job. I'm proud to call him a friend. Great coach, great person, and congratulations to him. Also want to say, while we're talking about coaches, congratulations to Rick Bowness on a fantastic career.
Definitely.
I worked with Rick in Ottawa back in the early 90s. I coached a lot against Rick at different times, and he always carried himself as a gentleman. So just a salutation on a phenomenal career.
For sure. And I gave him some props on Twitter today. He took a really undermanned, underskilled, some may say, 1991 to 1992 Boston Bruins team conference final, where they ran into the machine that was your Pittsburgh Penguins then and were swept. But before that, they swept the Montreal Canadiens to get there, when nobody was giving that team a chance to do anything. And so that was the type of coach he was. He could get guys to rally around him. He could get guys to buy in. I never really knew him personally, Pierre, but you did, and he just seemed like a gentleman. He seemed like a good hockey guy. So congratulations to him.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? You bring up that 92 team that he took to the Eastern Conference final. What's cool about that, Jimmy, I think they used 56 or 57 different players.
Yeah.
I have to look it up. It's over 55.
It was over 55 for sure.
I'm telling you, it was. I remember because you do all this breakdown before the series. And that's an amazing accomplishment to use that many players over the course of the season and still get to the Eastern Conference final. Back then, when you had a New York Ranger team that was really good, you had a New Jersey Devil team that was starting to surge. You had a Washington Capitals team that had all kinds of defensive awareness and size and grit. There were a lot of good teams in the East.
Canadians were good too.
You know, they were getting ready to win a Stanley Cup in 1993.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of good teams in the East back then.
Yeah.
And for him to have taken that team to the Eastern Conference final back then is a tremendous accomplishment.
It was. And you know what? We're going to get back. We're going to talk a little more, look back on that Game 7 for the Bruins and Leafs in a bit. And we'll tee up their series against the Florida Panthers. But right now, what we'll do, Pierre, is we'll talk about the one series that has started in the second round, and that's the New York Rangers. And I thought we were going to bring them on, but I want to we're going to go into the Rangers and Hurricanes in a second here. We're just going to get him back on into our studio there. And that is Tripp Tracy, who is our good Carolina Hurricanes man. We've had him on already once in this playoffs. We figured we'd bring him back on again because he was so good and we love him so much. And to talk about Game 1, which the New York Rangers won 4-3 over the Carolina Hurricanes yesterday, is our friend Tripp Tracy, joining us now here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Hey, Tripp, how you doing?
What's up, boys?
How's it going, my friend?
You're outside down there. What's going on with those shades?
I like those.
Yeah, I'm getting older, Pierre. I mean, I really, my eyes are really starting to go.
Hey, let me just tell you, he's a sandbagger at the golf course, and he's a sandbagger talking about it. That man's in better shape than most players in the league. I'll just tell you that.
I bet. And I like the sweatshirt too, brother. Looks good. Looks good. Tripp, welcome back to the Eye Test. We're glad to have you again. We appreciate you taking the time, and let's get right into it. Just your initial takes from yesterday's Game 1. Obviously didn't go the way the Carolina Hurricanes went, but what do you take from it, and how do you push that forward to Game 2?
I thought that, especially in the first period, that the Hurricanes lacked the typical maturity and experience. I mean, not just the fact that they become a veteran team, but even, their young players have a wealth of playoff experience. So I thought in the opening period, they played right into the Rangers' hands with regards to discipline. And, it was a special teams game. I mean, it's that simple. When you look at, to simplify, I mean, we could slice and dice the atom countless different ways, but the Rangers had a significant edge in both special teams departments. And, I thought they had an edge in goaltending as well, which is the centerpiece to success at any time in the playoffs. But I thought that the two things that surprised me early on for this mature group was their lack of discipline and the skill level that they should be able to put on the ice at Madison Square Garden. I thought it was a bit off as well.
You know what? Talk about that, Tripp. There's one other thing I thought the Rangers were better than Carolina at faceoffs. And one of the guys is a former Carolina Hurricane, Vinny Trocheck. He went to town. What's going on? How do you explain that?
Well, I explain it because, and it was my fear going in. I mean, I appreciated the heck out of Vincent on so many different fronts when he was here. And boy, I mean, having a righty to win draws like he can. And when he was here, you were with the Hurricanes had a bunch of lefties then, and they still do now. that you're covered on both face-off dots in both special teams departments. But Vincent Trocheck is such a Goliath competitor. He's a very proud hockey player, but he would appreciate so very much, and Rod did it with him here, that he gets leaned on in all situations, and that's going to bring out the best in Vincent. Michael Pekka, Pierre, you and I were talking offline and running the forwards, but when I look at special teams face-offs in particular, I mean, the biggest leap that Sebastian Aho took in an individual statistic for me this year, especially from mid-December on, where I thought he went from being a star to superstar, is he started winning those quote-unquote important draws and special teams face-offs in particular on the power play clean. And he didn't do that yesterday, and he's going to have to do that with a lot more effective execution against Trocheck or Zibanejad tomorrow. Or I think you even think about switching to the other side and having good Jarvis go against Gaudreau on that unit. That's something to watch very early tomorrow.
Great point. Really well said. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I remember Trocheck in that because I covered every game of that first round series against the Bruins in 2022, and you could just tell this kid was on his way. He was becoming a really dependable clutch player. And, you know, I get it, cap reasons, whatever. He doesn't end up back in Carolina or after that. But I remember just saying whoever gets him on the free agent market, I know a lot of Bruins fans were hoping he'd end up in Boston. They're going to find a keeper there. And that's what he's been for the Rangers, guys.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. You know, Tripp, another thing that was interesting to me in that game, there's usually a maturity level to Carolina that is really one of their calling cards. I thought that was an immature game by Carolina yesterday. Those aren't your words. Those are my words. I don't want to get you into trouble, but I'll tell you right now, I have so much respect for Rod and the way he coaches. You know that. Rod knows that. Jeff Daniels, I had the privilege of working with in Pittsburgh. Think the world of him. Tim Gleason, phenomenal coach, does a great job with the D. I don't think this is a reflection on them. I think it's a reflection on the leadership of the team. I couldn't believe what I was watching yesterday.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, I totally agree, number one. And number two, you know, back in the first of these 6 playoff runs in 2019, you know who was on the staff who taught me a ton? I called him 007, traveling everywhere in his car, his Jaguar, Rick Dudley. And Rick 007 Dudley taught me so much because as tough of a player as you would find in his career, but there was a massive turning point in that series in Game 3 when Michael Furlan unfortunately wasn't up to it and left the game. You're down 2-0. Ovechkin drops him with Andrei Svechnikov. Unbelievably scary moment as Svechnikov just got out-muscled and hit the ice. And Carolina had a choice to make. And however some people define toughness, what is toughness? Toughness is not being immature. Toughness is not the stuff after the whistle. Toughness is whistle to whistle. Toughness is getting to the inside. Toughness is protecting the inside before you get into the mental toughness part of it. And I felt like that bout between Ovechkin and Svechnikov turned the series eventually in Carolina's favor, win in 7. That was the turning point because they were not an experienced team other than a couple of guys at that point, but they played to their strengths and they eventually beat the defending Stanley Cup champions. Now you have a veteran-laden group, and you know I don't think there's any question they played right into the Rangers' hands in the first period. Took a couple of penalties you can't take. Kuznetsov's in particular, it's been a rough go for Kuznetsov. He's had some positive moments, but that's not Carolina Hurricanes hockey. And I go back to what 007 Dudley told me, and especially the way this team was built and the way they're built now, that's the type of toughness when you define it with bullet points that they have to exhibit to win.
Hey, Jimmy, before you go, I just want Tripp to remember, I did that game when Svechnikov got knocked out. Yeah. The Carolina bench, I'm maybe 1.5 to 2 feet away from it. Tripp stood in that position before. Jimmy, I'm just telling it for our viewers and listeners, they were so stunned on the Carolina bench that the trainer didn't react. He actually stood next to me.
Just
and you better get out there because this guy's in trouble. He's been out cold. And they were all stunned. They'd never seen that before. Wow. It was a horrifying moment. It really was.
Yeah.
Horrifying moment. Pierre, you were down there. Tom Wilson came, I believe, and challenged the Carolina bench. I love Tommy Wilson.
Yeah, who doesn't?
That was the fork in the road in that series. If you lose your mind and don't play to your strengths, and you exhibit the type of mental toughness and heaviness that's different than a lot of people think of, Carolina maybe gets swept in that series. Instead, they end up, protecting home ice and eventually winning on the road. I personally believe, and Pierre did that whole series, that was the turning point in Game 3.
Yeah,
I agree. The best part of that series was for me, Jimmy? I got to hang around with Tripp and his mom. That was good.
My mom loves Pierre. And
who doesn't?
We had such a good time. That was a good time.
She was a pure Michigander. My dad had just passed away, and so she came on the road, became known as a bit of a lucky charm for the Hurricanes. And as a matter of fact, she went to every game after the first two that they lost in Washington. They couldn't lose. Peter Mrazek had to see her before the game. And then the first game that she couldn't come was Boston in the conference final because it was my nephew's Catholic confirmation, and the boys were sour. And I'm not saying it was because of my mom, but I mean, couldn't make the trip.
One more on that series, then we'll move on.
Yeah.
So I get to the rink probably around 7:15, 7:30. It's an afternoon game. I forget if it was game 1 or 2. And I'm hearing this banging outside the Carolina dressing room, and it's loud. And I'm like, there's no way they're mad at each other now. It's nobody who's going to be here. So I go around the corner, the lights are out, and there's Rod Brindamore doing squats, dropping the weights.
Yeah.
15 in the morning. What is he doing? And he was getting ready for the game.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
And that rubs off on the players, man. If they see that, they know that.
Well, Trippster knows, right, Tripp? That does rub off on the players.
Yeah, it rubs off initially when, because Rod's my closest friend in the organization. Initially, and it's, we have a professional, but then we have a personal relationship. And I mean, I'll carve him. I remember it was at this point that, years ago, he promised me, I'm not a great golfer, but, hilariously, I said, Rod, if I ever qualify for Augusta, will you caddy for me? And so we were in Chicago for Augusta, weekend, Masters weekend. There's, a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I'm sorry to disappoint you again. And, he said that was my one crack to get to Augusta. But, we have these hilarious moments with one another, and we go back and forth with our personal relationship. But I initially thought, okay, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing the boys all talking about that, Rod's in better shape than a lot of the guys, and then Rod does the testing before the season. But it's actually very invaluable because if Rod is going to invest like he does, he's just getting his players to invest that much more.
It's accountability.
It's a critical piece.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, two players that I know Pierre is familiar with him. He's covered him so many times. He's done so many games he's played in, and Tripp, you are too, that I think would be, and you may have another player that would be good for this, but to draw on, we were talking about the leadership core, maybe not doing enough in game 1, is Jordan Staal. How much can he help in a situation like this, coming out of a game like that and getting the boys refocused?
Great question. Okay, so I wake up yesterday, I'm having my coffee, and I saw the Selke finalists come out. And, I look at it. The first thing, I don't want to get off target here, but I don't know how Crosby's not in the mix. Okay. But Jordan Staal, I was really proud of him from the standpoint that he had a really good year, and his plus minus did not reflect the type of defensive year that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting that validation, even though it would be the last thing he's thinking about before game 1 of a second round series, in comparison to his two brothers that have played in the NHL, Jared really didn't play much at all, but Eric and Mark, Jordan takes things to heart. He's a little bit more, he's very hard on himself. Pierre knows him very well. So I'm thinking yesterday in the morning that even though it's the last thing he's going to be thinking about being a Selke finalist, that could really help his headspace in this series. And I thought he was really good last night. By far Carolina's best face-off guy.
8-2 at the dot.
two best chances in the second period, one a breakaway, another one a quick release. I thought those were two Shesterkin's best saves, certainly of that period. And with Jordan, his mindset, he's challenged at times, because he's so hard on himself and so supremely selfless that he needs to remind himself that he was really good yesterday. And that's why going in, I thought the Selke nomination might really help him. And one bounce that might make him feel good about his hands. I can't remember after they beat the Washington Capitals in that series that Pierre covered that went 7, Brock McGinn in double overtime. And he scored the tying goal to be in regulation, same spot against Braden Holtby that back in 2009, Eric Stahl and the Shock at the Rock, beat Martin Brodeur. And go figure, confidence in his hands. He goes then into Barclays Center, game 1 against the Islanders, and scores a goal with his hands in overtime that required unbelievable hands. So if he can have something good happen for him with his hands after the type of game that he played yesterday into last night, he all of a sudden could get on a bit of a roll.
That's what I feel. Yeah. There we go. This is why we have on the show here. This is why Tripp Tracy is here on the eye test.
That was really good. I agree.
Yeah. I thought he was. In my opinion, he was their best player to me yesterday. So, look at that.
Before you go, I got to ask Tripp. This is something that's bugging me.
Yeah, go for it.
Tripp, tell me they're not messing with Freddie Anderson.
No, I think when I look right now at Freddie Anderson, the difference in games 1 and 3 against the Islanders, solid in 2, solid in 4. He has now played 2 ordinary games in game 5 against the Islanders and game 1 against the Rangers. We're taught as goaltenders at a very young age, there's no, even if it's Artemi Panarin, the year that he had and the shooter that he is, there is no such thing as a good short side goal. So that goal has got to be stopped in the third period. I thought he didn't look as confident as he had in games 1, 2, 3, and 4 against the Islanders. So my full assumption is you're going back to Freddie tomorrow. But in the back of my head, and I hope it doesn't come to this, Pyotr Kochetkov had a great season series against the Rangers. A couple years ago, he clinched the division championship in game 81 of the season at Madison Square Garden. He seems to relish playing against top shelf Russian goaltenders when I look at how he's played against Shesterkin this year and Sergei Bobrovsky. Tomorrow it's about Freddie Anderson regathering his game and getting back to outplaying the guy at the other end, whatever that takes. But I'm also thinking in the back of my head, that leash is a little bit shorter because of the swagger that Kochetkov has and how well Kochetkov has played against Russian goaltenders in his career and against the New York Rangers in his career.
Excellent info.
Look at that. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to pinpoint one adjustment, Tripp, if you're Rod Brindamore, that you're making heading into this game. One specific adjustment.
Jimmy, I could pick a couple, but as quick as the Rangers scored their 2 power play goals, looking at the film, they want, first of all, you got to win these special teams faceoffs, okay? Yeah. But if you don't, the Rangers, it's clear, they want to draw that net front defenseman out to the bumper guy.
Yep.
And you cannot take that bait, okay? You've got to stay home if you're the net front guy because they're trying to draw you out because they know then the chemistry and the magic and all the different tools that Kreider and Zibanejad have, you're cooked if that net front guy takes that bait. So among the other adjustments that I could point to, the one is that net front guy on the penalty kill stays home, and if you need help in the bumper, get it from the weak side forward. That's the one that I would want.
Brilliant. Good stuff.
One more add to that. Because Kreider's such an omnipresent figure in the slot, I know people say, oh, just let him stand there. Let him stand there. He's a human eclipse.
Yeah.
If you're going to let him stand there, make him feel pain.
Yep.
And he's not so reticent to want to go there all the time. I know he will, but he gets way too many. And I'm a huge fan. I like the guy a lot. I've spoken at a lot of events with him.
Oh yeah.
But it would be right on the board. Like, make that guy suffer. He gets free minutes down there, Tripp. You're a goalie. How would you like that body standing in front of you?
Make it suffer, and if you need to, talk to him in one of the 10 different languages he speaks. I mean, do whatever you've got to do to make him hard on him. I love Tripp Tracy. I absolutely love him, but you've got to make that real estate hard for him. And you know what, boys? When I look at this and I look at the elite nature of Igor Shesterkin, it's important against any goaltender. But if you're going to have success on him, Freddie has an advantage that Shesterkin doesn't have. He is a bigger frame. He can look around traffic. He can look above traffic. Shesterkin, when there is traffic, that's the only time for me that he actually plays small. He gets deep in the net. He gets deep in his crouch. And whether you find a way to get the puck quickly through the layers of New York, and they did a great job with layers shot blocking.
I agree.
Or you have a guy on his offside wide. The way he is when you do establish traffic, he's going to get a really late start on a pass because he has trouble seeing when you maximize traffic. Freddie Anderson, just because of his size, if he's playing to his strengths and Carolina establishes traffic offensively, you're going to have an edge in that department.
Another thing I want to bring up with your Tripp too, and I think the Rangers and Hurricanes both have a player like this. So sometimes, for whatever reason, whether it's their own or whether it's other things that happen, players can get a reputation with referees. And maybe, sometimes penalties that are called on them aren't necessarily always called on others. Rempe is a guy on the Rangers that I think of when that happens, right? I look at the Carolina Hurricanes. I look at Tony DeAngelo, who they really need to step up right now, obviously, with Pesce out. So I look at that penalty yesterday. I don't think that was a penalty. We can argue all day long about it, but I'm just going to say I felt like that was a reputation call. What does DeAngelo have to do to overcome that reputation, so to speak?
There are two things here. I'm trying to remember, and you'll know very quickly where I'm going with this. But Ivan Drago, I want to say in Rocky IV, he always had those steely eyes. You never knew what he was thinking.
Yeah.
Tony DeAngelo is at his best because he's played very solidly. If there is no chatter whatsoever, because a central part of the Rangers game plan is going to be through lip service to get into his grill. And he's playing well right now. Okay. So Tony needs to be serviceable defensively, be physical in situations like that. When I agree, I thought it was clean. Not say a word, no matter what. And at some point, hockey gods, thinking about our dear friend Chuck Caden, always talking about hockey gods. If he does those things, he's going to score a big goal or two in this series. It's that he will. And along those lines, even though you asked about DeAngelo, Svechnikov is in the same category. That's a tough break for him on that penalty yesterday. He has got to make sure that stick always stays on the ice, which it did on that tripping call. And Svechnikov, who's had a tendency to take bad penalties, has really been better, way better in the playoffs. But he's got another job too, because if the Rangers keep winning draws, he's got to either dive in or which he's trying to do in that situation. He has got to be on his toes as a winger and turn a Rangers one draw into a Carolina puck retrieval in an instant. So you asked about DeAngelo, but two guys that it applies in different ways when you think about a little bit of reputation is not just DeAngelo, but Svechnikov too.
There's that guy, Pekka, again. He keeps talking about face-offs. When did we tell our viewers about Michael Pekka? I still can't believe the Buffalo Sabres let him go.
Yeah. He's had such a great influence on the Rangers.
It's unbelievable.
Amazing. Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking the time, Tripp. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you. And are you going to be? You're back in Carolina for now?
I'm back in Carolina. We are calling games from the studio here. Obviously, would love to be boots on the ground in Madison Square Garden. PM, right in the middle of this trifecta right now, has always told me, you know what? Nobody cares about where you are. You have to, perform.
Just do it.
So this is for our listeners and viewers at home. Turn it on. You can get it on the online. Listen to Tripp's call if you want to get just a fair and balanced approach to the game. Turn it on. I'm telling you.
Yep.
And it's not a knock on anybody working the TV game. It's not a knock on Sammy Rose or Dave Maloney in New York. It's just turn it on. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll enjoy it.
What's the you got a link there, Tripp? You send it to me. I'll post it for our listeners and viewers.
I mean, I don't have a clue because I'm a tech moron. I mean, I'm sitting here having
I'll figure it out then. Don't worry, buddy.
I'm sitting here with anxiety to see the dinosaur that I am, to see if I can even get myself onto the Zoom. I mean, I'm a barbarian.
So I just have to speak fairly. Milton Academy and Harvard, okay? That's all I need to say.
I didn't know you went to Milton Academy.
Oh,
all right. I'm a St. Sebastian's boy.
Okay, so two things. You guys got to go. But Milton Academy, so I go to – I have a game against St. Sebastian's my freshman year at Milton Academy.
Uh-huh.
And the Bean Pot is going on that night, okay? And this senior girl asked me to go to the Bean Pot. Her name is Andrea Kelly. I never even knew she knew I existed. You think I'm small now? So I show up at the Garden. Harvard's playing BU the year they won the national championship. I show up, nervous wreck, bouquet of roses at the Garden after a game against St. Sebastian. Obviously, I did not have any mojo because she dropped me. I never heard from her again. I tried to transfer to Belmont Hill. My future athletic director, who's one of my favorite people in life, Bill Cleary, kiboshed it because he didn't want that ISL or whatever it was called transfer. So I go back to Michigan. So fast forward, we're playing BU my freshman year in the finals of the Bean Pot. We're tied 2-2 after the second, going into the third period. I get the stare of death from Jack Parker going onto the ice, and I'm shaving my crease, and I look in the fourth row. First time I had seen her since she dropped me. I saw Andrea Kelly as I'm shaving the crease, and I'm like, ugh, better win this game.
Oh, that's legendary. That's why we have Tripp on. That is great scouting reports.
You must have been there when I was there too at St. Sibs too. I graduated with Greer and all those guys. So,
oh, you know what?
Small
I'll tell
world.
you what. You know what's the funny thing after that freshman year? The Philadelphia Flyers made a really rough pick in the 9th round.
They drafted him.
Mike Pierre got drafted one pick after me.
There you go. There you go, buddy. Edmonton Oilers, right? I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, he got picked one pick after me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good
Bad
stuff,
pick.
brother. We appreciate it. Well, listen, let's get you on again in the playoffs, all right? Let's make this a regular thing, Tripp, because we love having you.
Anytime. Love you guys. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, Twister.
Enjoy the hockey.
Bye.
Tripp Tracy join us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. That's great. What a small world.
No, but how about the fourth row?
I know.
He's there.
I
could have
what happened to me, Pierre.
I look at you. Hey, I'm telling you, and I would have said it if he was on. It doesn't matter. He ends up watching it anyways. Tripp was a really good goalie.
Oh yeah.
No, like he was a really good goalie. He just wasn't to play at the NHL level for a long period of time. He just wasn't big enough.
Well, he must have been, Pierre, and I don't know if you remember this name. He was a transfer from Milton Academy his sophomore year to St. Sebastian's, Ben Heller.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he must have backed up Tripp at one point, I would imagine. Yeah.
I just remember the name, but Ronnie Tomasoni.
Oh, yeah.
Assistant and then the head coach at Harvard, real good friend. He recruited against him, spent a lot of time with him on the road. He was the king of the Northern Iron Range in Minnesota. He knew it because that's where he was from. He knew all the players. He was good. And Harvard back in those days, they did really well out west. They did really well. And he used to tell me,
out there, eh?
I went to the pros. I went to the NHL, and Ronnie said, I got this guy coming. He's a good goalie. He's from Michigan, Grosse Pointe, Michigan, but he's a good player. His name is Tripp Tracy. So I actually went and watched. You know, I forget where I was. We were in Boston or something. Our team was playing somewhere. And I saw him, and I was like, Ronnie, you were right. He's actually good. He's really good.
Grosse Pointe Blank. There you go. From Grosse Pointe, Michigan. Good stuff. Well, listen, before we get to the questions, Pierre, I just want to go back because we've discussed this off the air and we'll discuss it now quickly. There's a narrative going around that you and I discussed when I was going to see Maddie yesterday and I was in the car, and it's driving me nuts and it won't go away, where everybody right now is blaming Mitch Marner for this right here, David Pastrnak's overtime goal. Let's go to the clip right now, and then we're going to break it down quick.
Lindholm, right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
All right. First of all, before we get into the breakdown, Pierre, just want to what a great play by Hampus Lindholm on that as well, and also by David Pastrnak. But Hampus Lindholm may have been his best game as a Boston Bruin in game one, a goal and assist, and he was there. He delivered when the Bruins needed him. And we, everyone knows here what a big fan I am of Charlie McAvoy, but he's had a very roller coaster playoff so far, and they needed someone like Hampus Lindholm on the blue line to step up. So credit to him. Pierre, your take on what we both agree is some unfair criticism going towards Mitch Marner right now.
Yeah, so there's a few things here, a lot of moving parts. And I talked to Jimmy about this yesterday, and I've talked to other friends of mine in hockey, and they're very high-profile people. And they're like, I never even considered that. I didn't even see that. It was never brought up. So I'm going to try to just be balanced here because emotionally I'm detached from it. But I also think it's important to be fair. So when you watch the high angle, because they do show the high angle, Toronto clearly is going into a 1-3-1. They're clearly going into a 1-3-1. The deep guy, the one guy, is going to be the defenseman Morgan Riley. Mm-hmm. So what happens is they're forechecking. Toronto's forechecking. Johnny Tavares is one of the guys forechecking. And Bertuzzi's the other player forechecking. Tavares stays on the ice. Bertuzzi, the winger, he comes to change. But Pasternak's already wound up. So he's a Ferrari going 100 miles an hour.
Exactly.
So Mitchell Marner, and I want to pay the kid credit, he knows he's got to lock that lane. In a 1-3-1, that's his job. He's got to lock that lane, and he's got to take that lane all the way down to the icing line. And what happens is he comes on, but he's a broken down jalopy with a flat tire trying to maintain pace with a Ferrari going 100. Go watch the tape and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so there's no way he can catch him.
Exactly.
But this is the part of the play that has to be addressed. That happened in the first 2 minutes of overtime.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that always is important about the first 5 minutes of overtime, the ice is fresh.
Yes.
The ice is fresh and fast. If it's 3 minutes later, that play never happens because now Morgan Riley has a chance to go get the puck. But because it's fast ice and it caroms off the boards, he has no chance because the ice is fresh at that corner of the ice and it comes right out. And what a skillful play by Pastrnak and what a heads-up play by Hampus Lindholm. The Bruins have done that before this year, Jimmy, as you know. But I just think it's important to be fair. And all the hockey people I've talked to about this, you know what? I didn't take that into account. I didn't see that part of it. You have to see the high-angle shot. And to their credit, I watched it on Canadian TV because I'm up in Canada now. And that's, again, no disrespect meant to the American carrier. I watched it up here, and they had the wide angle. And you saw right away, I'm going, oh, boy, that poor guy got hung out to dry, and everybody's going to rip him from pillar to post. And that's what happened.
It was the first thing Pierre said to me on Sunday morning, and he's absolutely right. And, I'm in the heat of the moment covering it, but when I got up and watched the replay of the goal over and over, and I'm watching different other things that I need to write about, I thought the same thing. And I'm so glad you bring that up, Pierre, because I get it. He's a superstar. He's a lightning rod for criticism up there. And with everything that's gone on, another first round, I get all that. But let's just be fair at sometimes, sometimes you got to just tell it like it is. And I don't think that's all on him. My other question to you, Pierre, before we do go to the Q&A here is it looked to be, like you said, a set play. I'm wondering in the intermission, did the Bruins, whether it's the players, whether it's the coaches, whether it's both, whether it's their video guys, does somebody see that the Leafs could be prone to making that set play work, and they tell them to go for it when they get the chance? when they're in the intermission heading into overtime. Do you think that's what could have happened?
Sure, absolutely. But here's one other thing. If you go look at the tapes of the eye test and what you and I spoke of after game 4, we saw a trend that was way different from the first 4 games. And that was Toronto was frustrating Boston. Boston couldn't get to the net. They couldn't make plays through the neutral zone. They were handling the puck like it was a hand grenade because they had no time and space, because they were playing against a 1-3-1. The neutral zone had changed. So credit to the Leaf coaches. They had totally changed. And we talked about it, the schematic of Mike Van Ryan, who knew it from St. Louis, played against Boston. And the other one was Guy Boucher, who learned most of his defensive tactics from Jacques Lemaire. And that's pretty darn good to learn from that. And I will not shortchange Sheldon Keefe, because I think he understood the concepts very well. So Toronto made that adjustment. And then if they made an adjustment, your responsibility as the Bruins is to make an adjustment. And I thought the Bruins, Jimmy, I don't know if you agree, but in game 7, if you look at 5 and 6, the Bruins were way better.
That first period was much better.
Way better.
Oh my God.
Way better prepared too. Way better prepared.
Yes.
So I think, to your point, that could have happened. That could have been brought up. But I have seen the Bruins, and I know you have too, run that play over the course of a season. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I have seen them run that play.
All right, so quickly before we go we look ahead to that Panthers-Bruins series that starts tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. They're going to get more of that clogging up the middle against them from the Florida Panthers, who do a wonderful job at that. The best defensive team in the NHL in the regular season, that continued in the first round in their 5-game series win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're going to be physical. And Pierre, I thought one thing that Toronto, amazingly, they're not really known for it, but they did a good job of in those games they won against the Bruins, was their forecheck. If the Bruins had trouble with that forecheck, I don't know how they're going to handle what's coming at them right now, because as they witnessed and learned the hard way in that first round series last year, these guys come at you and they make you feel pain and they make you look over your head, and that leads to mistakes. And that's what they harp on. That's what they capitalize on better than, in my opinion, any team in the NHL. Can the Bruins get through that?
The good news in game 1, the Bruins are in rhythm. They've been playing an aggressive forecheck team, and also a passive resistance team through the neutral zone. So they've got their mojo up in terms of knowing how to combat it. The also piece of good news for Boston fans going into game 1, Sam Bennett's not playing.
That's huge.
Now, that could change over the course of the series. I would say this. It's really important for Boston to be better in faceoffs than they were for good portions of that series with Toronto, because you need the puck, number one. And number two, rather than trying to associate physical play to your game, if you're Boston, you got to get some skill in the game.
Yeah.
You got to get some skill in the game, and you got to get the puck deeper and get your skill game going so that they are running out of gas. They're defending. They're spending time in their own zone. So they can't come forecheck and pile drive your guys right through the wall. So you just got to turn the tactics on. It's easier said than done. But I do think the Bruins have enough skill to do it. I do. I think they do. Now they have to show that they can do it. And it all starts with faceoffs, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Pierre. I'm with you on that. All right. Let's talk about our sponsors, and then we're going to get right to these questions because they're lining up here. Let's talk about CBET. We got a new round of playoffs right now. Tons of props, series props, player props, what have you, all over at our sponsor, CBET. And when you go over there, you make your first bet, win or lose, you are refunded $300 Canadian. So you get some play money to spend in the beginning of the second round here. Use the code SICK, just like our song, that's SICK, to get that $300 refunded on your first bet. And let's go over to our other sponsor, TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freights, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact SICK Podcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is SICK sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. Let's get right to these questions right now. What do we got? Maxar, what can up-and-coming teams learn from the struggles of the Leafs? Who would have predicted 5 to 6 years ago they would only win one round in all this time? It's a good question, Pierre. What do you think?
I'm just trying to think in the Eastern Conference. I think going forward, the Rangers can learn from it. Last year, what happened to the Rangers was pretty tough, the way they got beat by New Jersey. I'm not saying they're going to lose this series to Carolina, but let's just say they do. They're going to have huge pressure on them next year. So I think that would be something they got to evaluate. And in the West, there's no question in my mind it's the Edmonton Oilers. There's no question in my mind it's the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah. And if they get beat by Vancouver, it's going to be, as much as their euphoria is existing now in Edmonton, if they lose this next round, it's going to be so nasty there. Oh, my goodness gracious. Yeah. It's going to. No, I'm not saying they're going to lose. I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. From your words. If they do, they're going to have to learn from what Toronto's done.
Yep. And Pierre, I think that would be, you don't invest that much money in 4 forwards. You build from the goalie out. That philosophy has stood the test of time through salary cap era, through rule changes, through whatever. That is still what you got to do. And I don't understand why it's so hard for some teams to figure that out, but it is. So that would be my biggest lesson right there, is just keep it simple. Don't get it too fancy.
Hey, Jimmy, before we go to the next question, I you know how I feel about this. I've been fired in the NHL. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've been fired. It's a really uncomfortable thing. Not so much for you, but for your family. It's very uncomfortable. And I understand it's a part of the business, and you've never seen me complain once. You've never heard me complain once. Yep. It's a big boy game, and you just take it the way it is, but you care about your family and how they take it. What I'm upset about is people are actually gloating and wishfully thinking that the guys in Toronto should just get wiped out.
Yeah. That's
not appropriate. You know what? You could think it. You can feel it. But try to do one thing. Try to do one thing.
Yeah.
Put yourself in that coach's shoes, or that general manager's shoes, or that president of hockey operations shoes, or that assistant coach's shoes. Put yourself in that position for 5 minutes and think about it.
Yep.
We all know what we sign up for. Everybody that gets involved in the NHL knows what they signed up for. So you're not going to hear anybody complain about it. I don't hear guys complain. It's for the families. It's for the people that are around, and I'm just going to tell you a quick story from this afternoon. 30 minutes before I came on with you, an NHL coach called me, not a head coach, an assistant coach. And he's concerned about what's going to happen. There's speculation that their staff might be replaced, that their contracts might not be renewed. And he says, that's a tough spot for me. My wife we've got our second child and brand new and don't know what I'm going to do. I said, you're going to be just fine. You're a respected person in the community. You're going to be just fine. But this is the stuff. I would never have told this story if I hadn't read some of the stuff that I've seen, Jimmy.
Yeah, I know. It's brutal out there now.
It's really not. It's not appropriate. Yeah. Take a run at me. I don't care. Like, go ahead. I don't read it anyways. So, I mean, I feel bad for these guys.
Yeah.
It used to be when I was coaching, you get shredded in a newspaper article or somebody on talk radio because it was just coming out would come after you. And you'd see him the next day and the writer or the radio guy, and you say, you know what? I don't take it personal. I understand you got a job to do. I got a job to do. And that was it.
Yep.
But now there's this carryover into the social media side of it.
Yeah.
I feel terrible for these guys. I really do.
It's vitriol. Pierre, we've had this discussion before, and it's not just sports. It's all walks of life now with this, where people they get typing courage. and they say things that they would definitely not say to someone's face. And I'm not saying that's because out of fear of violence or anything.
No. I get it.
I'm just saying that they know they wouldn't say it to their face, but they're like, hey, I'm behind a keyboard. Nobody's going to say anything. I'm not going to have to face any accountability. And it's out of control right now. And look, whether you or I think that a general manager or a president of hockey ops, like you said, or a coach, whatever, or even a player should be traded or let go, that's one thing. And we'll talk about what they've done right and wrong and what will happen out of that. But you don't have to attack them to the point you're like, bleep this guy, he should be canned. And it's just, have some decorum out there. That's all I'll say. I think we just need a little more decorum.
That's fair. That's a good description. That's fair.
Yep. All right, let's go to the next question. A to Z me. Rangers are so deep with skill. If most of those guys produce, they'll be tough for the Canes to beat. Really tough. We agree. And like, Tripp saying, they can't get him on that power play. I mean, it's just, you got to stay disciplined right now because that thing is clicking on all cylinders.
Well, the part of the 7-player profile is having 2 dominant centers. So you got Zibanejad and you got Trocheck. So they're 2. You need to have a power forward. They got a power forward, Chris Kreider. You need to have a specialist forward. They're redundant at the specialist forward position. You could have, a ton of guys. It could be Barclay Goodrow on the penalty kill. It could be, you choose whomever you want. Lafreniere with the way he's playing with his board play. You need an elite puck-moving defenseman. You got that in Adam Fox. You need to have an elite shutdown defenseman. I think you got that in redundancy with the Rangers. It could be Lindgren. It could be Trouba. It could be Keandre Miller. And then, obviously, you need to have an elite goalie. And I think they have that in Shesterkin and a Stanley Cup winner in Quick. So the profile, if you had those 7 players and they got it and they're redundant at it, they're really good. So that last email is spot on.
Yep, I agree. All right, next question. Samuel Matei says, Dallas has done a marvelous job scouting over the last, I love that word, marvelous, by the way, scouting the last number of years. What has been their secret to drafting so many gems? The Vegas series show how good they are at finding talent in all rounds. I'll let Pierre take this because he made a great point, and I want you to do it again, Pierre, about when they have found that talent. And some certain outside influence that were preventing a lot of teams from doing so, and they were still able to do it.
Yeah, no, they have boots on the ground. Jimmy Nils from the Detroit model, and he brought some top guys down from Detroit, and they don't waste time. They go in and they do evaluation, they do interviews. They're all about personal information on the ice, practice habits, everything. They're really thorough. They've done some really good things there. I called that last series, the 2017 series. You think about it, Miro Heiskanen is a first-round pick in that draft. Jake Ottinger is a first-round pick in that draft. Jason Robertson is, I think a second or third-round pick in that draft, if I remember, a second-round pick. So you look at it, those 3 guys, think about the way they influenced that whole series, just those 3 players.
It's great.
It's unbelievable when you think about it. And so they do. And Wyatt Johnston is, he would now, to be fair, he's a first-round pick. Kid that was really good in Windsor, really good in Windsor. But at this age, did anybody think that was coming?
To seize the moment like that, like he's doing at this age,
he's going to be a superstar.
I
do. I know exactly.
Yeah, it's
unreal. Wondering, where's Joe Pavelski? Well, Joe's still leading. He's still a leader. Where's Ryan Suter? Ryan Suter's still leading. Those guys have been around. They were both part of the 03 draft class.
But they don't have to be the guys. They don't have to be
the guys because of all these other guys. So the point about the drafting in Dallas is phenomenal because it's true. And again, this is the Detroit Red Wings system that started with Jimmy Devellano, and it moved on to Brian Murray and Dougie McLean. Nick Polano, too, was part of that. And then Scotty came in, and they had the 3-headed monster. They had Jimmy Devellano, Kenny Holland, and Scotty Bowman.
Yep.
And they ran that thing, and it was a top. You couldn't beat it. You couldn't beat it.
For sure. And I'll give a shout out to my buddy Steve Greeley, who now works with the Dallas Stars as well. Pierre, you're going to love, I want to pull this one up quickly, and then we'll get to a question. But Alex Evanovsky, in response to what Dallas does, I don't know if you can see it there, guys. You mean They don't just look at spreadsheets. That's the only way you can build a team in 2024. He says all sarcasm. No, they do the eye test, Alex. You're damn right. That's what they do.
Look, spreadsheets are okay too. I get it. People want to make sure they dot their I's and cross their T's. I totally understand. But I know there were a lot of people that did spreadsheets before the playoffs started because I saw them all. Not all, but I saw a lot of them. And it's a good thing those people didn't go to the casino to bet. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right, next question.
See, this is what a nice guy my partner is. I said, Jimmy, would you do me a favor and go pull up some of those analytic sheets that people have been pontificating about online, about how great this team is versus that team and how they're going to blow them out and this and that? And I don't think very many of those prognostications worked out very well.
Yeah. Next question. Mike, did you see the Lindholm to Passer play developing live? Yes, I did. I saw Lindholm take a look at Passer, and the rest is history. What a smart play. Majority of plays would have just blindly dumped that in. That's exactly what we were saying before, Mike.
Way to go, Mike. And you know what? There's a great call. He's a friend of mine. He was a really good player in college. He started at Northern Arizona. He went to the University of Maine, played some for the Boston Bruins, played a lot in the American Hockey League. Bobby Beers. If you do yourself a favor, listen to the radio call of that goal. Bobby calls it probably 5 seconds before it happens because he sees the exact thing that Mike was just talking about. Yeah. So tremendous job. All right, we got to go fast because we got a ton of people and we're not missing any questions.
Let's do it. Let's go rapid fire. What do we got? Bill Van Vagel, in terms of TV coverage and scouting, I have noticed the past 5 years or so much more attention on NCAA than previously. Have teams increased their college scouts at the expense of the CHL scouts?
Answer is no, they have not. It's equal opportunity. There's still a ton of elite players. I saw one yesterday, a 16-year-old that plays for Medicine Hat. His name is Gavin McKenna. Phenomenal player. He's a superstar. He's not eligible till 2026. I mean, it's just crazy how good he is. So, no, major junior scouting budgets are the same for college scouts. Here's the biggest difference. Teams used to think that a guy past 22 or 23 probably was past his prime. They don't think that anymore. And the college players are more physically mature than most of the kids that are 18, 19, or 20. They're coming out of junior. So it's equal opportunity, no budgetary restraints on major junior.
All right, next question. Jason Logan. Hey, gents, out of the 2 series on the East Coast, which one do you think will be the best? I'm going to go with Hurricanes Rangers, but I think they'll both be great.
I'm going to go Hurricanes Rangers too.
All right, next question. A to Z me. Do you think, guys, Marner saying Leafs play? I don't know if you saw this, Pierre. Marner said today that Leafs players are seen as gods in Toronto is more an indictment of his own immaturity or the reality of the Leafs media. More of a joke than a question.
No, I don't think it's a joke.
No,
I think it's actually well phrased. I don't.
Yeah, I think he's right. And just for the context too, I know we're pressed, but quickly, he was trying to say it's up to us to, play at that level, to reward the belief and the stardom that we have because of the media and the fans here, that we're treated that way. We have to reward them back and be better on the ice. So I thought it was a fine comment. I really did.
I didn't see it being much of an issue. I mean, I was part of a team where we had a lot of guys who were considered gods. Yep. A back-to-back Stanley Cup winning team. And think about Chicago winning 3 cups from 2010 to 2015. You don't think that Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook and Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves and Corey Crawford weren't seen as gods in Chicago? Think about the Montreal Canadiens in the 1970s when I was a kid growing up there. You don't think those players were seen as gods? They are. Yeah. The difference is that now these gods are being highly exposed because of
what we just talked about. Yep.
This.
Exactly.
So things have changed. I have no problem with what he said. He was being transparent.
Yep. He was
telling the truth.
He was. All right. Next question. State of survival. Lou Lamoriello, that is, was saying that this coming season, in so many words, the organization will be getting younger. How far away is this team from being a contender? Are they going to take a step back this coming season? I'll just quickly say, Pierre, yes, I do think they take a step back. But I believe Lou when he says that they're going to focus on bringing in younger players.
I believe that too. The problem is that I don't know how they're going to get those younger players. Their farm system finished last in the East in Bridgeport. They've got a couple guys that are high-end caliber prospects, but they're still in college. I don't think they're going to take them out. They brought Alex Jeffries out this year from Merrimack. But no, I think it's going to be a grind. They're not. I read where some of the players were saying that the roster is really good and they're not that far away. And I respect the guys that said that because I know them really well. They're really good people. I respectfully disagree.
Yeah, I do too. I respectfully disagree. All right, next question. The Puck Bunnies. Now that we see Reeves seems to be more talk and less smash, how ugly are those remaining years going to look for a team that needs the cap space? No comment.
Look, they thought they had an organizational need because of where they were. And there were times this season where Ryan did what he was supposed to do. And I think they were just concerned that as they went along in this series, the tempo probably wasn't going to be a friendly thing for him. I think that's probably what they were thinking.
Yeah.
People make managerial mistakes. Sometimes they work, sometimes, they don't.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do with that. All right, next question. Roger Collette. Question, your thoughts, please. I am always trying to understand hockey. After a loss, teams should relax for a while before acting on anything, player or coach related. John Cooper was refreshing to hear. I agree. I think we're seeing that a little more, Pierre. It's an interesting trend here, Pierre. I don't know if you've noticed that, and it's not unfortunate. It's an unfortunate trend for the coaches, but there's been 2 coaches that have been fired who still addressed the media after their team was eliminated or didn't make the playoffs. And that's Hackstall in Seattle and Granato in Buffalo. And then they were fired later. So I look back to 2022 with Cassidy addressing, thinking everything was safe. And 2 weeks later, he's gone from the Bruins. I do think that teams aren't reacting like with a trigger finger right now. I think they are sitting back and evaluating a little more and making sure that they're making the right decision going forward.
The most important thing for all these coaches, and you learn it over time as a coach or somebody in the business, when you're done the game, win or lose, you sit in your office and you talk to your assistants or you talk to your manager, you talk to your PR guy. What's the message we want to establish? How do we make it appear positive for us without fudging the facts? You should do that after every game. 1, it decompresses you, and 2, it forces you to really pay attention to other people's thought process besides your own. It's a really important thing. I learned this from Scotty. We always had a debrief after every game, and it really was important. And it works. It's an old formula, but it works.
Yep, I'm with you on that. All right, next question. Eric Landro. Hey, guys, Rangers fan. There have been some rumblings here in New York that Cheeto might make a return. Do you think the Rangers should risk line chemistry and, more importantly, the kid's health? I'll let you take this.
I don't know how, I don't know where he is health-wise. So, Eric, I apologize. I would answer more if I knew. I don't think anybody knows because injuries are closely guarded at this time of the year. Here's what I would say. If it becomes a tempo series and a speed series, they may need his speed. So you really can't worry about the line chemistry. But until they see a reversing trend, I think he just stays where he is right now and just keep going with what you got.
I'm with you on that. All right, next question. Vegas-Dallas Game 7 was really boring. That kind of surprised me. Both teams were playing not to lose. I like the Oilers' chances of getting in the finals more now with Vegas gone. A to Z me, I would agree with you that it was boring, but I think that was on purpose because that's how both those teams believe they can win in the playoffs. And for Dallas, maybe not for our eyes and our entertainment, they were more boring. If that makes sense.
All I'll say is, what a pickup on Tanev.
Yep.
You know what I did this morning, Jimmy, really early? I knew Chris Tanev played at RIT. He was a one and done at RIT. He's the best player that ever played for RIT. Vancouver's farm team back then was in Manitoba. They signed him and put him in Manitoba. Played a year there. Then he goes to Vancouver. He's never deviated from the NHL since. He's been with different teams, but never deviated. Do you know how many times he's been a minus player in his career in the NHL? One time.
Okay.
One season. There were some bad teams he played on in Vancouver. There's a minus player once. What a pickup. That was an amazing pickup by Dallas.
It just stabilized everything for them.
Oh, my goodness gracious. He is so good. He's 35 years old.
I know.
He's still got game left.
Yep, he does. All right, next question. Jeffrey B. We know Brad Treliving has a vision of how he wants the team to play, grit, toughness on D, etc. Do you think Shanahan will give him the free rein to make real changes, or is this Dubas 2.0? I think Treliving and Dubas are two different, completely different people, and the way they approach their jobs. I don't think it'll be a part two of Dubas. I don't know what will happen with Shanahan. I think we got to wait and see. I'm going to pull a wait and see on that answer right now because I just want to see how things shake down in the next couple of weeks.
I'll use a different term, to be determined.
Okay. Plain and simple. I like that. All right, next question. Pierre, what is the longest trip you've taken to scout a player, a drive to Thunder Bay, a flight to Eastern Russia, somewhere in between?
There've been a lot. Going to northern Sweden for 2 or 3 days, that's pretty far to go. I've been to one of the most eastern parts of Siberia. That's Omsk, OMSK. Been to a bunch of different places. Back when I was coaching college, I remember once doing a loop through Saskatchewan. And, oh, my gosh, I remember almost running out of gas and saying, oh, man, praying in the car saying, please just get me to a gas station. I'll never do this again, And there were some beauty trips, but I never had a bad one.
Nope.
I used to always, when I'd go to the eastern part of Europe or Russia, I'd always bring my own food. Like I'd bring pasta, dry pasta, or soups, Lipton soups.
Okay.
I just couldn't afford to get food poisoning or get sick. And it's not a knock on any of their food. I didn't know half the time what I was eating.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know if your stomach's going to handle it. Yep.
Yeah, so I just bring my own stuff. And I used to bring Hershey bars. I'm not kidding you. Jimmy, I know this is going to sound crazy, but and we have so many scouts that watch this.
Yeah.
The older guys will appreciate it. I used to bring Hershey bars and Marlboro cigarettes. And that was as good as having cash.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Well, I'm just telling you, and I never smoked, but it was just as good as having cash.
It helped to get info or communicate, right?
Yes, it did.
That's great. You got to write a book someday, Pierre. You have to.
I told you when I'm going to write it, but I'm not going to say it on this air.
Okay. All right. Next question. HDR DGS. Gents, do you see Marner getting traded to the Montreal Canadiens? I don't know. I do think there's a good chance he's traded, but I don't know if it's to the Canadiens. I kind of like the dots that Pierre, we don't want to speculate too much, but I do like the dots that could be connected with the Columbus Blue Jackets should they bring in Hunter.
I think there's one there. I think there's one in Chicago that could be a dot that could be connected. I'm stressing if Toronto goes down that road, because I don't know if they will or they won't.
Yep.
Nobody's leaked to Jimmy and nobody's leaked to me.
No.
But I would say that there's a few places I could see the dots getting connected on him. All right.
Places. We shall see what happens. All right. What do we got? Any more questions? All right. Looks like this is the last one. Vincent Joel, no question today, just a comment. I love how you gentlemen always keep it classy. Thank you, Vincent. We appreciate that. It means a lot to us.
It really does. But when Jimmy and I talked about this, I said, there are a couple different ways we can do this. I said, I want to be a long-term partner for you. I said, if we deviate from a certain methodology, you're going to be on your own.
Yeah.
I don't want to see people get hurt. I don't want to rip people apart. I want to just formulate opinion, answer questions, try to educate if people need education on it. But the biggest thing is I just want to make this a fun place for people to come and spend an hour.
Yeah. That's our goal.
How happy Tripp Tracy was today.
Yeah.
Like,
It was great.
he was so happy. And that story that he told about the beanpot,
That would be you. Yeah.
that was so good. The girl wouldn't give him any time, and he brought her roses.
Oh,
He was
gosh.
playing in the game, and then he comes back 4 years later.
I hope she's watching.
Just get a copy of the show and send it to her. That'd be good.
There we go. No, we appreciate that, Vincent, and we're glad that you say that. And we appreciate all of you viewers and listeners that show up here every day. And, of course, any new ones that come along, we'll welcome you as well. And thanks to our production crew up in Montreal. Thanks to our sponsors, CBET and TCS Customs and Logistics. For Pierre McGuire, I'm Jimmy Murphy. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.